Hey there, my friends. Okay, so how do you distill or define your message so that when people hear it, they immediately want to do business with you? All right, my friends. Over the last little while, I've been doing a lot of coaching, meaning I've acquired some new coaches, and I started really digging deep into clarifying our message, right? So, as you know, Bridger is a startup. We're developing the ultimate CRM for the logistics sales professional, and in doing so, we have to almost re-educate ourselves on the sales process. Now, some of you might be thinking, Dan, re-educate yourself on the sales process. Yes, because you can't sell one thing the way you sell another. Now, when I say that, there are very common similarities in every aspect of sales because you're dealing with a human 1.0, right? There'll never be a human 2.0. We think a certain way. And in doing that, for the last 30 years, I've been selling freight. And I understood my definitions and I understood my sentences and my clarity and how to deliver the value when it comes to freight. And something very interesting that I've been, complete transparency, I've been struggling with it because I'm a big technobabble guy, I've realized. And for what that means for some of you that don't know what technobabble is, that's when you just start spewing all of these technical things that happen. So, as most of you know, I'm kind of a tech geek. I love all the new technology and I love like digging into it and the AI part of it and creating systems that, connect to each other and JSON and JavaScript and all these different coding languages. And sometimes I get very verbal about the technical side of it. So that's the techno babble where we just start, and maybe you've had this before where you've been in a meeting and you just start talking, and all of a sudden you can see in people's eyes you've lost them. And this happens a lot from stage, and this happens a lot when I speak at events where I have to be very, very conscious of the words I'm using. I have to distill them down, define them down to the words that move people mentally, physically, emotionally. And what that means is we have to go beyond things like USP, FAB. So for those of you that it's unique selling positions and feature advantage benefit kind of statements. And this has been probably one of the most difficult things for me to do. And I've got in my iPad here, I've got pages and pages of notes, probably 6 or 7 pages of notes trying to distill down 5 points about the system that can add benefit, like value. So I call these benefit statements. I mean, if you Google right now, you'll see millions, probably hundreds of millions of different posts about how to distill that message. And so I think today, more than ever, right? Looking at our industry, looking at the economic environment, looking at the market, and what's coming down the pipe, and that next kind of curve that we're going to need to flatten. I believe now more than ever, your message is one of the most important pieces of the puzzle. There's a lot of great people out there that come into your company and do all the storytelling and define your message. And I think if there's one place where sales reps, where managers, where executives have to get better, it's at the messaging. And I can share that with you because I've done so many different courses on sales training, on marketing and everything. And what it all comes down to is, some of the structures that we push forward with Bridger and with high performance logistics sales, and that we push forward in this podcast are, your ICP. So understanding your ideal client profile is the nucleus of defining your message, right? And I'm sure this is not something new to you, right? That you understand this. And I've realized, and yesterday was a big eye-opening experience for me because I sat with a gentleman, Giorgio, and if you've listened to the podcast yesterday, Giorgio is an email specialist. And one of the things that I've been very vocal about lately is the fact that I'm doing more email than I've ever done lately because of the strenuous activities with my voice and trying to protect it. And in email, I'm realizing that that clarity of your message, like how do you define what it is you're trying to accomplish for the prospect in a like a benefit conversation, not here's what my tool, here's what my service, here's what my value. It's like, how does that benefit the prospect? How does that benefit your next client? How does that benefit your team if you're a manager? How does that benefit your team if you're a salesperson that has an ops team direct? So these are all things that I think we lose track of. I know I do anyways, and if you do, then we're on the same line. Where because sometimes we just get into the day to day, and we get into the idea that like okay, we got to sell, we got to do this, we got to do this, we got to build business, and especially now, right? A lot of you are probably sitting there going like, I just need more business. I need more business. I need more business. But are we, and here's the big question I started asking myself yesterday, and I've spent probably 3 hours thinking about it, just in quiet thought, is am I articulating everything I do to the 10th degree? Am I defining my message so I can distill it into a consumable way in a single sentence that says to my prospect, damn, I need that? And the answer right now for me is no. And some of you might be shocked, but I think by now you guys all realize that, I'll call it like it is. I think I've got it okay, but I think there's so many levels above where I am right now. And, I've often said this to all of you is I think everyone has, no matter where you are in life or business, I think you have 10 rungs to still go. Like, I believe guys like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos still have 10 rungs to go. And, they're some of the most successful people on the planet. But I do believe we have this. And what it is how do we find it? And I'm not going to get into how we find it on this podcast because still don't know. I'm still working through that, right? I'm speaking to a lot of people. Some of you that I know, if you're watching this, I'll be reaching out to you as well, because I think that defining your message piece is going to be one of the most critical pieces, not only now, but in the future. Because the more and more we look at it, right? It's like if we go back to kind of ads at the beginning of social media, they were gangbusters, man. They converted like crazy. Now there's so much noise that your ads have to be on point, on target in order to kind of give you any ROI. And if we take that analogy and we shift it over to our market, right? Increased calls, increased emails, the volume of stuff that's kind of flying at us daily is increasing exponentially. But yet we still operate with the same paradigms or the same processes as humans did eons ago. And so that message is what's really going to break through the fog, the smoke, the clouds, the noise in the market, and any market you're in. So if you're not in logistics and you're listening to this podcast, the reality is every market, it's distilling that message, right? It's really understanding your ICP and distilling that message. And so a couple of things that I learned yesterday that I'm working on. And the biggest one for me was, we're looking at the system bridger, and there's 15, 16, 17 pieces of this system that are killer for sales reps to utilize daily, to help them improve, to move faster, to scale their business, to land more prospect. Like all of this is in there. And I can go into the dozens of techno babble things. And when I got asked one question, okay, what are the top 5 things? Even give me 7, he said, that will change people's lives. And I was like, ooh, how do I choose? And this was my big question. So my first order of business was taking everything that matters, that I perceive as matters. And here's where sometimes that clarity gets distorted for us is we think things matter that don't really matter to prospects, right? And I can tell you, when you start looking at the value you bring to the table, when you start breaking down with your customers, like, okay, why do you use me? What is it that you like? How is it that you like? What is it that you do? And you know what? That just gave me a great idea. Um, um, okay, so that see, this is all conversation that just comes out, and as you speak through it, you tend to get better ideas. So here's the idea: talk to your clients. Why do they use you? What is it that they find value? Use those words when you're using your next sale. So I'm going to try that today. I'm going to reach out to clients and say what it is it that you love about the system. How do you feel it improves your workflow? How do you feel this? And I'll take that and I'll put it against my 5 to 7 things that I already got. So what I did is I sat down and I said, okay, what are the 5 biggest things that move the needle? Because we can't offer too many things up because it distorts the nucleus of the value we bring. Now, what I mean by that, and you see what I just did there? That was very wordy to say, don't overthink these things. Share 2 to 3 things that you think will help move that prospect to the next dimension of their success or the next level of their success. Yeah, I did it again. So it's a how we verbalize it in our heads and express it like verbally, like so how we process it in our heads and express it verbally, sorry, matters. And one thing I said yesterday on the podcast that I believe is fully true. I think emails are harder than cold calls. And I think that because one, you can't display like a tone and like energy and passion in an email, right? Like if you're speaking to somebody, you can raise your tone or you can lower it, and you can lean in and be curious, and then you can reach back and be like, steadfast, and so we have all of these emotional highs and lows in our voice that we can bring in, bring out, put in, add, remove, and it creates an overall feeling on a call. Whereas words are just words. Now, you can use some words that, you know, give this meaning, give this oomph, but it's very difficult, and especially because you got like 3 seconds to catch, A, the subject line, then B, the opening line, and all this, and there's this process. So I guess in the end, where I'm coming from with all of you in this particular show is that grab 5 things. Like just take the top 5 things that you think you bring to the table that help move the needle for the customer, um, and distill those down into like 6 or 7 words as to what it benefits. And this is not easy, my friends. I mean, I'm now probably with yesterday spending 3 hours this morning, so I'm probably up to 5 hours on 5 things, and I still don't have it to a point where I like it or where I feel it's very fluid. It expresses what I want to express, because I think this is another part of the written word over a conversation where I can sit here and I could go and name things up, and I will hit a hot button eventually. But in words, I have to do it in like 30 to 40 words. All of it. Meaning the thank you, the call to action, everything in 30 to 40 words. And this is where I think that we as individuals, I think we give up too easy. I think for most of us, and for the most part, we give up too easy. Where we don't distill, define, like reimagine the words you use, right? So perfect example is, let's say for example you're closing at 10%. From open to close, 10%. Every 100 people you call, you get 10 customers. Now, that's a very high number, but I'm just using it for because I'm not very good at math. Full transparency. So if you look at that, and some people will say, okay, you know what? Like this is incredible. I love this. 10% is good. But what if you were to define and refine a few things to get up to 12%, to 15%? There's no more effort in what you're doing from an output perspective. You're still doing 100 calls. But if you can move that needle because of better, a a more well-defined message, or a more succinct conversation, a more succinct message, then you're raising that bar without working an additional 10 to 20 hours a week. Right. So for me, this is the way I start looking at it. And I start saying, okay, and this is where like all the excitement comes from, because to me, this is exciting is okay, I've got this to a level where I feel it's productive. How do I raise that bar, but not raise my output? Right? Because at a certain point, like, for me, for example, we're talking 6 to probably 6 p.m. So I'm already doing 12 to 16, even 17 hours a day, because sometimes I'll sit in bed at night and I'll just work until 1 o'clock in the morning because I got ideas and things are flowing, and I'll just let it come out. And this was one thing that I learned from Wayne Dyer, God bless his soul, a long time ago, was when these ideas hit you, you run with them right away. And even if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and I wake up, I'll run with it for an hour and then go back to bed. And it's just something that I've done for probably 2 decades now. Gosh, yeah, probably 2 decades. And um, so I don't necessarily want to work 20 hours a day, but how do I take the time I'm doing and multiply the results? Right? We get clearer on our message. We get more defined, more succinct on what we're looking to do, how we're looking to do it, and the call to action. And one of the things that brought this up yesterday was the fact that I was saying to my coach, I said, here's the thing. Like, I'm getting close to a 60% open rate, but I'm getting like a 3% reply rate. What am I doing wrong? Like, in my emails that I'm sending to people, I'm getting, so it's like 59.2% open. On my click rates is close to 48%. So when I'm asking somebody here, click here to, check us out, or check us out on the web or whatever. I mean, those are huge numbers, right? Um, my reply rate is just so low. So I'm asking, like, what am I missing? And the one thing he said was, Dan, in all of these emails that you're sending, and all of these variations and all of these customs, he says, one thing he goes, you're not asking somebody to raise their hand. You're kind of asking them, you're sharing with them that this is the ultimate tool and they should get it. So, but they don't know you. And I thought about that for a minute, because at first, probably like most of you, I was like, no, that's not what because in my head, that's not what I was meaning, right? In my head, the message that I see on that screen is one of, are you interested in this? But when you really start defining and distilling that call to action, I was. I was almost assuming that they actually needed a CRM, or that they use a CRM, instead of saying, hey, changing the verbiage to call it out and say, hey, do you raise your hand for a further conversation? So that was one piece that really went, okay. So I'm now back in redefining, redistilling the messages in order to better communicate with my prospects. And I'll let you guys know how that goes. But I mean, I guess in the end for today, anyways, um, you know, think through what it is you do, how you serve, why you serve, what are the benefits of somebody using you. And one thing he said to me yesterday was, and this is not anything new, right? This is, I think, something that we forget as we get into the day to day, and as we get into the grind, and as we get into the sales portion, and as we get into this, is we forget the basics. And it always comes back to the basics, doesn't it? Right? Like when you learn, it comes back to the basics. When you hang out with people, it comes back to the basics. When you meet new friends, it comes back to the basics. Like it's always about the basics. And I think with all this technology and all these layers that we're adding on, we're forgetting about the nucleus, the basics of what we do. And in the end, as a logistics sales professional, what we do is we serve people and we eliminate headaches, right? We bring their product to market in a way that fulfills their needs, goals, mandates, and their desires. So by doing that, that's the basics. So we stick to that. And when he said that, when he said, like, okay, so why would somebody use you over another system? And I went, oh, well, because of this, this, and this. And he says, okay, but other systems do that. I'm like, well, because of this, this, and this. And he's like, okay, haven't heard of other systems doing that. That's pretty good. Do you lead with that? And I go, oh, no, no, I lead with this. And he goes, okay, but you're leading with generic. You're not leading that distilled message. And I thought that was very interesting because it stopped me in my tracks. And I went, oh my gosh, I'm not. Like it's a really big learning curve. And I think it's a learning curve that we all should practice all the time. Like, I don't know, and I'm at the point where I'm thinking, never be satisfied with the message. Refine it, refine it, refine it, refine it until you can't refine it anymore, and then refine it again. And I think, in the end, the more we refine, the more we bring that, you know, clear distinction of what we do to the market, I think the more we'll attract our ideal customers. So that's it for today, my friends. But something to think about, and I encourage you to really take today's show and rewatch it, re-listen to it, because that definition, I think, will be part of a new beginning for you, a new era of distilling and refining and becoming the person you were meant to be in this industry. So I hope that helps, my friends. I know it actually helped me a lot just by speaking it and kind of having it down. I'm going to write some notes down after the show, and I'm going to get to work on it. Until next time, my friends, remember, go out there, make every call educational, and crush your sales. Define your message, distill that message to the most powerful 6 to 10 words you possibly can. Until tomorrow, my friends, take care.